the Foodtech episode.
Are you an entrepreneur with a great idea and you're hoping to win over your investors, customers, and distributors? If so, you will love this week's episode as my guest did just that. Hi, this is Eric here, and you're listening to #Highly Sought After. His name is Alan Phua, a food tech entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of Alchemy Foodtech, a disruptive food and biotech startup who is helping to make meals healthier without compromising on taste. Thus far, they have raised over $4.5 million from private investors and even Enterprise Singapore, a government agency. Within their first year of operation, Alchemy has served over 7.4 million meals and have established relationship with leading food brands like Boon Tong Kee, the #1 chicken brand in Singapore, Gardenia, the #1 bread brand in Singapore, and Swee Heng, my favorite, the #1 bakery in Singapore. So if you want to learn how you can win over your investors, customers, and distributors while impacting millions, you got to pay special attention to this Foodtech episode. Thank you so much. Hello, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
And thanks for bringing some yummy food over today.
I hope you will like it later.
Yeah, we're going to do some food tasting. Now, I have a question for you. You're in a food tech business, so why not let's start with this fun question, okay?
Yeah.
If you can describe yourself using food, what would you describe? What food would you use?
My favorite food is chicken rice. I would definitely use chicken rice because it is the food that I miss the most when I travel. The first thing that I want to eat when I come back. And it was also one of the first projects that I hope to work on. And really, I think it's a comfort food of Singaporeans, and I'm a typical Singaporean. And and eating is our favorite pastime. So I think this really comes back to the whole essence of trying to empower people to still enjoy the food that they eat. And that's
very nice. I love the plug-in. Well, those of you who are listening to us on podcasts or you're watching us on YouTube, let us know in the comment section, especially if you're on YouTube, what is your favorite food? Okay, if you can describe yourself using a food, what would you use? It would be a very cool way to get to know you. So now, I want to check out your history, right? You founded Soyoto with your wife, right? And then 7 years, Soyoto is essentially you're helping to make sure that we're eating dairy or ice cream.
So the whole point about Soyoto was to have a low-calorie ice cream because we love eating ice cream, but we didn't want to grow fat. So
okay, ice cream lovers, please listen, right? So you started with that.
Yeah.
And then after that, you went to Alchemy, and your job was to make sure that we enjoy eating our favorite food like bread, noodles, cakes, without the bad effects of it.
Exactly.
So there seems to be a common trend here.
Yes.
A common pattern, right?
Yeah.
It's all our favorite food, but yet they have harmful effects,
Yes.
and you're helping it to make it healthier for us.
Yes.
Why that motivation?
So for many fronts, I'm a foodie at heart. So I love to eat, but I don't want to die. And I don't want to get ill health or put on weight. And I realized that a lot of times the existing options out there are really painful choices. It's either you giving out your favorite food or you eating some substitute that doesn't satisfy you at all, and then suddenly life is not worth living. Because at least for me, I live to eat.
Yeah, a lot of foodies will relate to you.
Yeah. So if me staying well means me being miserable in other sense, then it's not a perfect solution at all. And then for us, in the Alchemy story, there was a much closer reason, much closer to my heart reason why we got started on this. It's really because both my grandmothers, they passed away due to diabetes complications, and my mom has 6 siblings. 5 of them are diabetic. Type 2 diabetic, yeah. So growing up, I had a lot of personal experiences watching people struggle to stay healthy by staying away from their favorite foods. And one particular experience that really stuck with me all these years is my aunt. Once she was supposed to go to a doctor's and have a blood drawn to measure blood sugar levels. She basically lied flat out to the doctors and said that I have a phobia for needles. Can I give you my urine samples instead? So she went to the washroom. She diluted her urine samples with water, just to cheat the test, and so the result don't look like it's the conditions getting out of control. And then so we will leave her alone to still eat her favorite white rice, drink a sugar coffee and things like that. But cheating on the test is a short-term thing, right? The complications are always going to come back. But that left a very deep imprint in me that it's extremely difficult for people to do the right thing in terms of staying away from their favorite foods, even though nobody wants to be sick, right? And when it comes to things like diabetes, the complications are really dire. You're talking about amputation, kidney failure, blindness, things that nobody will ever want to have. But every single day, every single meal, giving our favorite food, extremely difficult. So, that's why we felt, since we have a background in food technology, my wife and co-founder, she's a food scientist by training. So we're thinking, why don't we use this domain knowledge, create a solution so that people can still enjoy their favorite foods, but in a safe manner, they don't get the health implications.
I feel that we're just only about 3 minutes in the interview. You've already won everyone listening to you. You obviously have won me. I mean, the standard health advice that people always give you is to restrain, is to cut, right? But it's very difficult to change old habits.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with cigarettes, right? We know that cigarettes are bad for us, but it's very difficult to cut it. So first of all, on behalf of everybody listening and watching, we want to thank you for for making it possible for us to enjoy our food. Okay, so let's go to the science of it first, shall we? And then after that, we go into the marketing and the investing. How do you first came out with it? Okay, you kind of had a motivation, but was it difficult to find a formula, to be able to allow us to enjoy rice?
Yeah, so it started with a mission to want to make staple foods healthier, right? But before that, there were a lot of approaches they can do it. For example, you can go into biotechnology, you go into hybridization or gene editing of crops, to maybe grow a healthier rice. But then we did a scope, right? Mainly Vali, my co-founder, the CTO. So we did a scope of the land. We were thinking about the various approaches that we can do this. Of course, if you were to go into biotechnology, you might end up with a rice that's healthier. But what we found was that one of the biomakeup is it's a little bit technical. It's what we call the amylose and amylopectin ratio. So when you try to reduce the glycemic index of rice through biotechnology, you will always end up changing the taste and the texture of the rice. This was a very strong conclusion. And there was a flat out no that, the final solution should still preserve the taste of the food, because otherwise there will be no adoption.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you a very noob question, right? I heard about, us reducing sugar. That actually a lot of issues that happen is because we have too much sugar. Yeah. Can you share the science behind it? Why is sugar bad for us?
Yeah, so sugar and high glycemic index foods, right, basically refers to glucose that's being released from the food. And when this glucose enters our bloodstream and we don't get rid of the sugar fast enough, it increases the viscosity of the blood. So the blood doesn't flow as smoothly in our vessels. So over a long period of time, it can lead to toxin deposit. And over a super long period of time, we're talking about decades down the road, right, it's going to lead to clots. And then that's why a lot of diabetic patients, they start to go blind because the clot happens in the eye. Yeah, when it happens in the toes, some of them go for amputation. And then there are other implications like stroke as well. So, which is why it's extremely important, I think, for everybody to regulate their blood sugar levels, whether you're a healthy individual or you're really diabetic.
Got it. So a lot of food that we eat, like formerly ice cream, or cakes, or even the standard rice and noodles, which is carbs, right? Yes. All that has glucose or it releases sugar.
Correct.
And high amount of sugar in our bloodstream.
That is correct. And actually, what we have also realized, because we do have consulting endocrinologists, that helps us with our work.
Correct.
Is that our body needs glucose. Our brain feeds primarily on glucose.
Yeah.
All our cells require glucose to function. But what our bodies can't handle is the sudden influx of glucose. So we're regulating it, the release of the glucose from the food, so that we get enough to get by for the cells to function, but we give our body more time to get rid of the glucose.
And is that what Alchemy Fiber does?
Exactly. Yeah.
So Alchemy Fiber doesn't remove the glucose release.
Yeah, it slows it down. Yes.
I see.
Yeah, because again, coming from the advice that we sought from the clinicians, they were saying that, if you don't have enough glucose in your system, you're going to lead to hypoglycemia, you can faint.
Yeah, because it's energy source, right?
Exactly. You need the energy, we just can't deal with the sudden influx.
I see. Oh, now, thank you. Okay, because noob, I study computing. I had no idea about food tech. Got it. So now we understand how it works. So let me recap, right? So number one is, all this food produce sugar in our bloodstream. Yes. And it's the reason why sugar is bad. It's not because sugar is bad, but it's because the high influx of sugar is what causes a lot of problems for us.
Yes.
So if you can slowly release that sugar in our bloodstream, then actually we can enjoy all this food.
Yes.
And a lot of options that is available back then during your time requires modification of taste or texture, right? But if we're going to, that's the reason why some of us don't like brown rice, right? I mean, because
actually,
it
92%.
looks different. No, wait, what did you just say?
92% of people refuse to eat brown rice.
Yeah, because number one, it's brown. Number two, the texture.
Yeah.
It's like eating sandpaper, it's just rough.
It's very rough.
Yeah, so I get it now. So when your wife and you came out with this idea, right, and you make it work, how do you feel when you first discover it? Do you like shout out, Eureka?
Yeah, so it was the discovery and the research process was 3 years.
Oh.
Yeah, so we researched a lot into different type of fibers that we get from different plant crops, from corn, pea, legumes, tapioca, all kind of different plant crops. We researched a lot into the characteristics of each fiber, and then we realized that we have to form a fiber blend. It cannot be just one source of fiber in order to deliver both the no change in taste and also to slow down the GI of the product. And then when we first discovery, we have the hunch. We are in the lab. It shows that it works, but the truth is really in the pudding when you have this tested in human body. So we have already done to date 5 rounds of human clinical studies. So basically, we give them rice and then we measure blood sugar. We give them rice with alchemy fiber and we measure the blood sugar. Over 2 days, and it was consistently shown that when you have rice with alchemy fiber, it will elicit a slower glucose response.
And they didn't even know that was rice with that alchemy fiber.
And that was when we know for sure we have something that works.
Okay, now, so we kind of speed up already, but let's slow it down a little bit. So when you first came out, when you thought about this idea, how do you end up having a lab even to do all these experiments? Don't you need some funding?
Yeah, we need funding. We didn't build our own lab even when we got our first round of funding. So our first round of funding came from the Singapore government. It was a technology research grant called Technology Enterprise Commercialization Schemes. Very mouthful.
Most important is money.
Yeah, the most important is money.
Money for the government to help you create this tech.
Today is renamed as the Startup SG Tech Grant. So it's a highly competitive deep tech research grant. Criteria is that it has to be deep tech. He has to have potential to go really big, internationally. So we show that diabetes is a global problem. And by the way, a little bit of background on the diabetes problem, right? Today, there are more diabetic patients than active Amazon users.
Can you repeat that?
There are more diabetic patients in the world today than active Amazon users. And you think Amazon has a lot of users, which is true. There's even more diabetics.
Oh, wow.
And then there are a pool of people who are about to become diabetic, which is called the pre-diabetics. And then there are the regular people that we have to protect to ensure they don't join that pool. So this mission is very big. And hence when we pitched for the grant, we presented these facts, it became overwhelmingly obvious that this is a project that we should work on. And even though it was a very competitive grant, only about 7 to 8 companies receive on a yearly basis. And this is not only open to startups, it's open to companies of all sizes and age.
Who wants to do some research.
Exactly. And it has to be deep tech. Yeah. So we were funded initially under that grant. We chose not to build our own lab because it's the fastest way to burn through the money.
Yes.
So we rented the lab in the National University of Singapore and US.
Okay, first of all, I didn't even know you can rent a lab, but that's very cool to know that.
It's not publicly offered as a service. It's just that as an alumni, my partner Valinch is an alumni, so we have a good relationship with them and they're very, very helpful and supportive. So we asked, can we rent, because otherwise we have no money to build one.
Yes.
And then we also had some professors work on the project. We have some FYP students which we paid for out of the grant. Yeah, so we can stretch the research dollars.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's go back to the emotion, right? Remember we talked about the eureka moment. Yeah. So when you and your wife realized that this is something really cool, obviously it was only a hypothesis, right?
Exactly.
And so you pitched the idea, and you got a fund.
Yes.
You're one of the 7 or 8 companies that got it. How do you feel, you and your wife, how do you feel when you got the yes?
We felt really, really thankful, especially, for deep tech startups at the very first stage, you have a hunch. Of something that might change the world, but you don't have the proof, right? And
it's just a hunch.
It's just a hunch, exactly. So it's a very difficult proposition to sell to private investors. If you go to an investor and say, look, I have an idea, it can solve and change the lives of millions, but I'm not sure whether it works, give me the money.
It's like Shark Tank, right? I have a hunch.
It's like, I have a hunch, that's it. I have no proof. I cannot guarantee it works. Can you give me some money? It's going to be a very hard sell.
So tell us, how do you manage to sell a hunch?
Yeah, so we by the time we got to the pitch, right, for the grant, we already had our first prototype that was done up. So people were eating the prototype. So we had these experiments done at home. And we said that based on certain literature research, this is the idea that possibly could work. We do not know. We need funds to manufacture, to do the research, but at least in terms of tasting, in terms of physical samples, we have already managed to produce it. So you can taste it to believe it, but if you can prove the clinical efficacy and we can scale up production, for sure you can see that.
So you already had a working prototype. Actually, your wife was able to create something, create a fiber.
I wouldn't call it a working prototype then, but it was a first draft of a prototype because we still had to prove that it works.
Okay, and back then when you did it, there was no impact to the taste. It tastes the same.
Yes.
And yet it was able to slow down the glucose release.
That was what we believe based on the literature research that we've done and what we used to formulate in the product. But again, the truth is when you really conduct clinical studies, which is what we needed the grant for.
Got it. So the way you sell it was, number one, there's a very big problem that you can solve. Number two is that there was a little bit of testing, because I think the biggest objection back then was, is it going to affect the taste?
Yes, and also whether it works. So many big questions to answer. The taste, at least upfront, try it. You can know for sure. And then the clinical part is where we needed the funds as well as the time. Yeah.
Got it. And then, of course, you did a smaller version of it, and you just needed a scale. So very good. And I'm asking you this question because there are a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this episode, and obviously we have a lot of ideas. But the question is, are we able to interest an investor to listen to us? So what I'm hearing from you is, if we sell them a big enough a problem, right, exciting enough a problem to solve, right, you will be able to attract that resources, and obviously, hopefully, a prototype.
Yes.
Right. Okay, good. So were you happy when you got that yes?
Very, very happy, because I truly believe that it will become something big, because people love to eat, right? The concept of tasty, healthy carbs, is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even at the very get-go, I knew that, I strongly believed it was going to be a no-brainer, but it was really about making it happen. That there was the question mark, and we need funds to make it happen. So when we had the first major believer and then patron, which is the Singapore government through Enterprise Singapore, really happy.
Got it. Sometimes we just need a believer, right? So tell us a little bit about where has Alchemy Fiber, which is that fiber you created that allow our carbs to release sugar slowly, but yet it tastes good, right? Where has it been added?
Yeah, so right now this is being served in major restaurant brands. So I think you mentioned the likes of Boon Tong Kee, the largest chicken rice chain store in Singapore. Right now they serve in every outlet, every single serving. So it's a default. In fact, you cannot even opt out. Yeah, it's the same in other restaurants like All Yuki Specialty Duck Rice chain store, all the outlets and all the servings.
Chicken rice, duck rice, Gardenia bread, so bread, noodles.
We have restaurant partners such as Dumpling Darlings that mix ramen with Alchemy Fiber. So give you the same great taste, but without the sugar shock to the system. So basically anything carbs,
And today in our studio, we, Alan had brought something really interesting. Can you tell us what you brought?
Yeah, so today I brought one of our partner products, which is a sugar-free chiffon cake from Swee Heng.
Hey guys, just listen. Do you hear what he just said? He said sugar-free cake.
Exactly.
It's like cake, sugar-free. Who will eat it?
Yeah, it's for a long time we know that sugar-free cakes is a major fantasy and one of various people. It's just that anyone skilled in baking will also know that when you remove sugar from cake and you replace it with just with sweeteners, you're gonna end up with problems. The cake's gonna become drier, so the texture is affected, and a lot of times the cake might collapse.
Got it.
The structure
so
will
visually,
not be
the structure it won't work without a cake without sugar. But I'm a consumer. I just care about whether the cake tastes good, right?
Exactly.
So right now I have orange. Let me just go back to the microphone. I have orange chiffon cake. So those of you on the camera, you can see orange chiffon cake. You see, it's not collapsing, right? It looks like a very normal chiffon cake. But what's very interesting, it says there no sugar. So I'm gonna taste it. It's sweet.
So it still tastes like the regular chiffon cake, and then the texture is still soft, it's still moist, even though it has no sugar in it.
No sugar?
There's no sugar in it.
Okay, guys, I swear to you, okay, this is not a sponsored interview, right? I love sweet stuff, man. Anybody who knows me, I know I like sweet stuff. Recently, I just had a cheesecake on my own, whole big cheesecake on my own. Yeah, oh my god, so dangerous. Alan just rolled his eye at me.
Wow.
And okay, I have to say this orange chiffon cake tastes really sweet, like a normal cake, but there's no sugar in it.
Exactly.
But it's because he added some magic additive,
so,
Alchemy Fiber.
Yeah, so this magic ingredient, of course, it's called Alchemy Fiber. We developed a special blend that's used in cakes. And what's special about this blend is that it also empowers the cake to be made with sweeteners, natural sweeteners. In this case, we use maltitol instead of a regular sugar that will spike your blood sugar levels. Yeah, and the key thing that made it really challenging for any bakers who will try to use sweeteners, again, the taste and the texture.
Yeah.
So we have made that happen with Swee Heng.
This is so cool, guys. So, okay, how do we know? I mean, it is in Singapore for now, right? Those of you listening to us, because we are in 5 other countries, but at least for my Singapore friends, right, listeners, how do we know if our food has the Alchemy Fiber in it?
So if you were to say patronage one of our restaurant partners, you would see our logo, our heart shape. It says made with Alchemy Fiber on the menus. And then sometimes there's also posters like for Swee Heng, they are a bakery, so they have the label on the packaging. As you can see, the red heart on the label.
Yeah, made with Alchemy Fiber, and it says low GI, high fiber, high prebiotics.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Same great taste.
in a way, you can look at us like an Intel Insight to many of these food brands. Just that we power their products to be healthier, but without changing the taste.
I love that. Actually, that would be a great way to introduce yourself in future. Like, we make you enjoy the food without the bad effects of it, without changing the taste.
So that's all that we do.
Thank you so
the
much.
essence of what we do.
Okay, before we go into the marketing part, right? Let's go back to, we're still on science, right?
Yeah.
You shocked me by saying that there is more diabetic patients than Amazon users.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know? So we don't talk about those people, okay?
Yeah.
But you said that there were a lot of pre-diabetic
yeah.
patients, right? People like us.
Yeah.
And I remember in an interview you said that these people are getting younger and younger, because
Yeah.
I used to think that diabetes is for old people, right? Is that still true?
They still make out the bulk of the population, but the fastest growing band are the people who are between 30 to 40 years old, which is basically us. And I think, and the dangerous thing about diabetes is that at the initial phase, you don't really experience anything. So that's why he has caught a lot of people by surprise. If you go for regular checkups, that's where the red flags might come. But if you don't, you're probably going to get a diabetic stage where you first discover that you have it.
Got it. Yeah. So the the checkup, you're talking about the blood sugar, right? The doctor will tell you about your blood sugar. Are there any other telltale signs? I mean, besides us going for a medical checkup, which we should, are there any telltale signs to know?
Some other common telltale signs of diabetes include things like frequent urination. So why that happens is because your body is trying to frantically get rid of the glucose that's all stuck in your blood. And then there are other telltale signs as well, like chronic fatigue. If you feel tired the entire time, it could mean that you are diabetic as well. Even if you sleep enough. And also if you start to notice that your wounds don't heal or clot as quickly as before, it probably might mean that you are at risk of diabetes. It doesn't immediately mean that you're diabetic, but it's one of those red flags.
Possible red flags.
It's a possible red flag, but when it gets to that stage, that kind of symptoms, you're pretty much diabetic already.
And of course, if you are a carbs person, like if you're a carbs or dessert person, like I'm a rice person. I love noodles. I love cakes and sweet stuff. I think that's something we need to take note of. Yeah. Well, thanks for that, man. Thanks, Alan. Well, this is amazing. You're the first food tech entrepreneur I've ever interviewed. And it's very cool that your success isn't just about you making more money, but your success actually allows us to be healthier.
Exactly.
I could almost say that your success is our miracle,
I mean, for us, we're a mission-driven startup. The whole point is to create impact in people's health, and people have started enjoying better health. They've written several testimonials. I think the business performance is more like a byproduct. If we do well financially, it's because we have done enough impact.
Exactly. I always believe that the money that you make is the market's feedback of your value.
Exactly.
If you're making a lot of money, it means that the market believes that you're giving them a lot of value.
Exactly.
So if you want to make more money, give more value.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go to marketing, okay? So you had an awesome product. You took about 3 years, right, incubating and doing the research.
Clinical studies.
And when you officially started to roll it out to the public?
We only roll out our products in 2020. That's last year. So it's only slightly more than a year.
But it was the pandemic year. Was that a positive thing for you or negative thing for you?
Extremely challenging.
Okay, tell us all about it.
So our first wave of rollout was meant to be the restaurant partners, and it still is. Because I think through restaurant partners, there's a lot of show and tell opportunities when it's on the menus. And then also when restaurants tend to have a shorter turnaround time. So it's easier to roll out speed to market. And then with restaurants, we have ability to roll out many different dishes, from rice-based ones to noodle-based, bread-based items. So there's a lot of storytelling opportunities. So that's what we chose. So we had originally wanted to roll out to have official launch in May of last year. And if you recall, May of last year was in the middle of circuit breaker.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had it all planned since January and February. We had the venue planned, we had restaurant partners planned, ministers secured, everything was done. Even the press was secured 3 months in advance that we're going to have this event, come and cover it. Everyone's RSVP, we're going to come and talk about this great product launch. And then COVID hit, right? And then at that point in time, a lot of our restaurant partners were food service guys that depended quite heavily on tourism.
Exactly.
And as well as events. So when COVID happened, they're in this array, and when it hits our clients, we are hit. Right. So all of a sudden we had to pivot. We had to ensure that we start to think, okay, food is something you have to eat no matter what. Even with a pandemic, you got to eat, but maybe you eat at a different place, or maybe you buy a different type of food. So then we had to pivot, right, and look for clients in the restaurant scene, in the food service scene, whose food tends to travel well. so people are more inclined to order. Casual dining as well, because I think people are still willing to spend on casual dining. Fine dining, I think it depends. Some people feel that they still want to pay that amount only when they get to enjoy the ambience. So that is a half and half, but some people still spend. But the more clear-cut prospects to go after will be those that are going for mass premium, food that travels well, and hence we had to suddenly overnight pivot our
strategy,
and who we prioritize as key partnerships.
And so, who were some of the clients? That's how the bread thing come about, right? Because bread travels well. Is that
Bread
how you came
travels
about?
well, cake travels well, chicken rice travels well for sure, duck rice as well. So a lot of these items, the daily food items, was what we ended up concentrating on.
That's so freaking cool. Got it. So that's how it happens. I remember you mentioned before, we chatted about it, that as an entrepreneur, you can almost say that this can be quite a lonely journey, right?
Oh.
and do you think so? Even though you brought so much joy to people, but has it been a very lonely journey? And on his LinkedIn, he actually wrote he's a CEO, which is Chief of Everything Officer.
It still feels that way.
Pakalia, right? Pakalia means do everything.
Well, the team has expanded. Just over, I think 18 or 24 months ago, it was like maybe 6 of us. Now it's 18 of us.
Wow.
Next year, I think it will be 25. So within a space of like 2 years or 2+ years, the team has grown like 4 to 5 folds. Yeah. So even then, you're still a very tight team. So many people are still across multitasking. Yeah. But I think all entrepreneurs out there will feel some degree of loneliness. I believe. I think at the start, the loneliness was the highest. Also because you have this great idea, you have this great passion, you want to get started, but not many people believe in you yet. And
was it true? I mean, I thought you were a first hit. You hit it.
Yeah,
right at the
so we
beginning.
had the support from the Singapore government, but on the private sector side, it was very challenging. So if we backtrack right to the stage where we were trying to prove this technology,
correct.
We got the grant, we passed the clinical studies, proven that it worked. We went to pitch to private investors, and many of them were skeptical. Also because at that point in time, Foodtech was not a known vertical. So when we said introduce ourselves as a Foodtech startup, they said, so you have a website to order food. So there was a general misconception or misunderstanding of what food tech is. And then some of them felt that, food, there's no tech, it tastes good, you sell. It will sell, there's no tech. So it was only after a while that they really understood it. And when we pitched the story on, diabetes is a key problem, we have a solution for it. There are also some investors who are not so well versed with the problem. Some of them felt that we were making up the problem. They don't believe that diabetes is such a big problem, even though our statistic came from like the International Diabetes Federation. All those are validated facts,
and they don't believe.
And they don't believe. And then some of them feel that, this will result in a product that's slightly more expensive. You know what? Only the rich people will be able to afford, and rich people don't eat rice. There's a lot of things that we felt were not justified reasons. But then, skepticism is something that comes to all early stage entrepreneurs. So at that point in time, very lonely, you feel that nobody believes in you.
Oh God.
Your team is very small. It's basically just you and your co-founder. What are you gonna do? You have this great idea. That once this scales, it creates impact for people. But right now, day one, nobody believes in you. What happens?
And How do you overcome that?
Yeah, so we have to. So we pivoted even our pitch at that point in time in our first round of VC funding. We pitched this as a healthcare startup because we are bringing about better blood sugar levels. And then for the patients, for the regular people who are trying to prevent diabetes. So this is indeed a healthcare startup at a stage, and then we got funded because of that. So I think one of the key skills I think all entrepreneurs need to have is to be able to pivot always to the situation, be it COVID or be it that your vertical could be early, but there are other ways to sell this product. We still have to do it. And then when we got funded, we then continue our development work and more into the application side where we really get this into everyday foods, the rice, the chicken rice, especially in the cooking, the cakes, which cake, chiffon cake, different sponge cake are different. Even on the bread, brioche versus, your regular loaf breads, all those are different. So we then spend the money to do all this application research and got all the samples done. And then very excited, we brought this to the industry, we shared with partners, right? And then the partners all look at us like, you guys look very young. If we're in the food industry, this thing eat already will die or not, in a very local slang. How do we know it's safe? When you say it works, how do we know? And then we had to show them that, we're funded by the Singapore government. Ministers like PM Lee as well as DPM Heng Swee Heng has spoken about this. Clinical studies obviously show that it works. We have also gotten our patents granted to date, right now, we have gotten about 17 countries granted already. And then there are already many other brands that really committed interest to want to get started. But a lot of times it's getting the first yes that's extremely challenging.
That's right.
Yeah, so when we got those challenges and questions thrown to us, you can feel that the gate was completely shut. So bit by bit, we got to find out what are their concerns. Do you think it's safe? Okay, these are the certs. Do you think it works? These are clinical studies. Who else is backing you? We're backed by the government. Do my customers really want this? You know what? We showed a statistic that rice in particular, volume has been falling. Even though people love eating rice, and it's really because people getting concerned.
Because of the healthcare advice that people say, right?
Yeah.
That rice is bad, so eat less. But actually, we want to eat.
Yeah, people want to eat. And what we always find is that people stay off rice for maybe 3 weeks, 1 month, maximum 2 months. By the third month, they're back.
Yep.
So it's not a sustainable solution to get people to cut completely.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you had a very big win with the Singapore government, the Singapore enterprise, right?
Yeah.
That was your big win that got you started,
first big
right?
win, yeah.
But then after that, it was a series of no's.
Series was no.
Your round one investing was a no,
and then we pitched, and then we pivoted the pitch, and then it was a
and
yes.
then it was a yes.
And then we
after
get
that,
closer
no's
to the
again.
market, and then no from the market again, and then we pivot, and then we try to get some trust.
So
once you get the first big yes, then you get a second big yes, and then a third one.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we persevere through all the no's until we get a yes, right? You remember there's this picture of these two guys digging goal, and then one of them was so close to hitting goal, but he gave up because he had, he hit nothing, right, for a long time.
So anytime that I feel discouraged,
Yes.
I always go back to what many people call the first principles. The absolute truth of life and universe, right? The absolute truth is that diabetes problem exists. People want tasty, healthy foods. There's no good solution. That's the first principle that always keep me going, because we already have developed the solution. It's about making people, the partners, see that this is a core need that people are already calling for it. You may not know about it because they may not go up to your faces and tell you that can you make your food healthier. But when you start seeing the rice volume fall, when you start seeing people signing up for gyms, when people start talking about what they're putting into their bodies, you know that the health trend is there. It's very, very strong. So I think it's about also making your point visible, to be more convincing to your partners, and then eventually they will see that there's reasons for them to take on this product.
So two things I'm learning from you. So number one is whenever we get our no's, we always go back to first principles, or we go back to the why we're doing this.
Exactly.
Right? I think there was one famous guy who said that, right? What's his name? Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Right? He says about the why. So there's a saying, right? When the why is big enough, you figure out the what and the how.
Exactly. So we started from the why.
And the second one is to look at every objection as an investment, as a pitch objective.
Yeah.
Right? That if people are telling me that, I don't think the food is going to taste good, then that becomes my objective. I'm going to prove to you that my food is going to taste equally good.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, everybody wants something. The young consumer wants to enjoy food, but escape the guilt and the health implications. Whereas the B2B partners, they want to boost their business, right? So we also learned that, through our work with our B2B partners. So other than telling them that your consumers want this, we have to also go through the matrix with them of when you use this, how much more volume you're going to get, how much more business you're going to get. You're going to get stronger recall. You're going to get increase in margins and volumes. It makes sense for you to do it. And then on the PR side of things, you look like a brand that cares for your customers.
Very well said. There's a saying, right? To sell Jindo, what Jindo want, you need to first see from the eyes of Jindo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so learning how to see from the eyes of your different stakeholders help you make your pitch a lot more convincing.
Yep.
Woo. Can I ask, it has been 5 years?
5 years now, yeah.
And would you say you're
6 years actually.
6 years.
6 years
Turning
now,
6 soon.
No? We turned 6 in October.
It's already 6 years.
Yeah, so it's 6
Wow.
years and 2 months now.
Wow. It felt like a while because I know you only recently, so I only know you this year. So it felt like it was just a while ago. What do you think is your next big challenge and milestone?
I think our next big challenge is to onboard the truly international brands, and we already have those in our pipelines. Some of the pipeline partners we have are true MNCs, public listed companies. So working with them is a whole new dimension because there's a lot of red tapes, and then every product that they decide to roll out is multi geographies. Right, so I think there's always a lot of considerations. Then there's a lot of checks that they do conduct on their partners before they take on any new projects. So in terms of us, getting a back end work, the production capacity, the qualities, all those things we are already having them in place. So for example, we just got ISO certified.
Yay.
Then of course we're halal certified. And the SFA certs, the FSAL certs, all those things we have already gotten the back end work done. So I think that's the next wave of challenge, and also to expand our application into more food categories. Because right now, we focus on everything carb. So staples is our number one game. But we have also developed application for other foods. So for example, it was recently announced in the press that we have developed a bubble tea pearl that's made with Alchemy Fiber. So it has the ability to increase the fiber content intake for you in the drink. And then it can also potentially slow down the sugar release, from the sugar drinks.
I tell you, everybody's going to love you, You're going to be every foodie's best friend. Because you just make all your favorite food healthy.
Yeah. So that they can consume and have a peace of mind.
My last question for you. I mean, obviously you had a great idea, right? And you had the support of the government, and you have grit and persistence, and you have a very strong, compelling backstory of why you want to do this. Like even if no one support you, you'll still do it because you had a very big why. You can see that in your eyes. So you'll find a way. There are a lot of other entrepreneurs who may not have the great idea. We may not have an idea that can save lives or change the world. What do you have to say about them when they go out there and pitch those ideas that might not be the best? Should they just give up because their ideas are not good? Or
I think if you don't feel strongly about the idea, you should give up. Because the truth is that I think with all entrepreneurs and in all verticals, you're going to get a lot of no's. And even after you get your first yes, you're going to get a series of no before you get your next yes. And we are still getting some no's now. And I believe for every single company out there, it's the same. So I think what keeps us going is really believing that this is the right thing to do. And for us, going back to first principles, people need this, right? And people really do want this. And hence we are creating it and making it available. So I think tying this back also to ensure that you are working on a problem that's huge enough.
Yes.
Yeah, that can create a big enough impact would then result in a compelling business case that's investable.
Wow, you have a very good point. I remember going for a business networking event before, and there were a lot of young people say, I want to be an entrepreneur, because nowadays it's very cool to be an entrepreneur, right? Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but we do not have a great idea.
Yeah.
And this very established entrepreneur said that if you want to find a great idea, first find a big enough problem that you are excited to solve and that you have the resources and capabilities to solve.
Yes, exactly.
And then when you combine that together, then you have a good enough investable idea.
Try to solve big problems, you get a lot more help. That is very true. Because
say that again.
When you solve big problems, you have more help from NGOs, from the governments. You have more opportunities to get funding from private sector because there's more impact to be driven. And once you deliver the impact, the profits come. When you solve a small problem, there's not enough people who care. You're not going to get help. You're alone.
Alan, this is very important to me because a few years ago, I was platooing and I was just wondering what's going on? Why am I not excited anymore about what I do? And I don't seem to, be able to get the attention that I want, right? And someone said that to me as well. He said to me that you need to start stepping up and to solve bigger problems, because the minute you open your mouth and if let's say you say, oh, my goal is to be a person of influence and to grow my TikTok following, let's say, right? That's not my goal, by the way. Who's going to help you?
Yeah, who cares, right?
Who cares about you being famous?
It's a very vanity type
Exactly. And so you're not going to attract smart people to you, because smart, talented people, they want to work. That's why, smart, talented people want to work for a cause. They want to work for meaningful things. Do you know Tesla is not the only company that does the energy cars?
They're not the first either.
They're not the first either. But guess what? The bestest, there's no such word as bestest, but the best engineers, the smartest, most talented engineers want to work for him. Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Why? Not because of Elon Musk, but because of Elon Musk's goal and vision and wanting to colonize Mars. It's exciting enough. Doesn't matter if you achieve it. Yeah. But if I want to do something, I must as well do something big, right?
So today in our team hires like permanent staff, we have people who are ex-Nestle's key appointment holders. We have people who are ex-Health Promotion Board, ex-Bread Talk, people have coming in from all walks of life. And then in our board of advisors, we have ex-MD of Kellogg's, for example. So why do these people spend time with us? It's not for the money. They already have enough money.
Yes.
So they are doing this really because they realize there's a strong need. There's going to be a tremendous impact, to be achieved once we roll this out at a big scale. So that's primarily what drives them. Otherwise, these are people who can retire. But they're spending time with us because they believe in the mission.
Alan, this is beautiful, and I truly, truly, deeply wish you success. And I hope to see your heart, the big red heart that says Alchemy Fiber, in everything that we like to eat. All right, so guys, you know what? I got this crazy idea. Those of you listening to podcasts, go watch the YouTube video instead. Those of you watching on YouTube, put down your favorite food, as I asked you right at the beginning of this episode, and please, Alan, go have a look at all your favorite food, and please do something about it. And I don't know what you do, but just add your alchemy magic into those food. Make it taste equally good, if not better, but make it healthy. Could you do that for us?
That's all we live to do.
He said that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Alan, and really appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
having me. Wish you success, man. High five. Let's finish the chiffon cake together. All right, guys, so this is Alan, and I have to say that this is one of the most enjoyable episodes because I get to eat in the interview. Here's my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway is this, that if you want to attract powerful people to you, if you want to attract successful, wealthy people to you, you want to attract resources, network, publicity to you, you have to have a big enough mission, right? And that mission is usually tied to a big enough problem that you want to solve in this world. And it would never be about you. And so if you want to step up your game, you want to play your A game, you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're even an employee that's trying to catch the attention of your CEO. Stop thinking about your career promotion. Stop thinking about your own personal interests. Start thinking about company's interests, country interests, the world's interests. Because when you start thinking at that level, you're going to attract powerful people to you, because powerful, successful people want to solve big problems because that's just the way they are made and engineered. That's my biggest takeaway from today. So I hope that you will go start reaching out, start thinking deeply into problems that you feel connected to solve, and start communicating those things out. And let's make the world a better place for you and I, and for all our children and our children's children. If you love this episode, we publish this once every week on our highly sought after YouTube page. So all you need to do is just hit the subscribe button, switch on bell notification, and you'll get access to super duper inspiring personalities that will help you play at your best game. And I wish you success, and I'll see you at the next video.